What's going on? It's Justeeni here. This is the semifinals of the Polytopia World Championship. We're seeing Arthur in the north playing as Imperius, and DTAT, who just won the quarterfinals against Amaji. DTAT playing as Hoodrick. You might be wondering why Arthur didn't have a game in the quarterfinals. He got a bye because he did very well in the face-off. So Arthur with a nice advantage here going into this championship in Sweden. But this is going to be a very interesting game one. I'm just going to say that right now. Like, this game is going to be absolutely crazy. The set is going to be unforgettable. Just a reminder of how these sets go. Single limb tournament. Sets are best of 3. All the games are on small lakes. Let's get right into things. So Arthur going for Classic Turn 0 upgrade. DTAT Classic Turn 0 unit. DTAT seeing a Ruin. Imperius just developing as normal. DTAT going for hunting. Sees plenty of animals here. Imperius grabbing the lighthouse with his third warrior and getting fishing pre-cap. Opting to grab the explorer before he upgrades because if he can snag a lighthouse or something, he can save a few stars. He meets Hoodrick, but he's 1 star short of being able to upgrade his capital. Unless he gets the lighthouse, he barely misses it. So this gambit not quite paying off for Imperius, but not too big of a deal. He doesn't miss out on much, just 1 star. Now DTAT getting the explorer, kind of veering off here. Not really getting a good view of the center of the map, which he'd really want here, but he does grab the lighthouse at least. Imperius now getting the level up and going into the water right away. DTAT now getting on this ruin. What could it be? Imperius quickly grabbing this village using that warrior that he sent in the port earlier. Population for DTAT. And looking at how this game's going to develop after this explorer, which meets Imperius, DTAT is going to be stuck on just 4 cities. Imperius already with a 4th city and good control over the map. It's a high likelihood that he's going to get even more cities. Now we see already roads for Imperius. Upgrading, getting the explorer now. Very interesting explorer, but he's going to be able to grab this western lighthouse, and he could be setting up the city for a potential explorer to get the southern lighthouse, maybe. See fishing from DTAT now, wanting to put his giant in a port, since it's going to move a lot faster than it will on land. Smacking the archer there and training a bunch of riders. Arthur very ready to play aggressive here. Whereas DTAT's trying to play for the water. Second giant, which is also going to head into the water. And he's got a nice defensive setup. You know, you can't bounce a rider in because the forest and the warrior both kind of provide a nice barricade here. Now the explorer getting the vision that DTAT needs, seeing the shape of the map. And Arthur expanding here. He's going to be on 6 cities. He's going to be able to get Grand Bazaar, and the city advantage will really help him in the long term against Hoodrick. And we see that second explorer, or I guess third explorer. He's gotten explorers on all of his cities so far, and he's grabbed 3 of the 4 lighthouses. Now DTAT going for sailing, pressuring the city, but he does leave himself open to these rider hits. Now we see Giant on the capital, upgrading the city. What's Arthur's plan for this? The plan is a wall, Park of Fortune to get a wall. And you actually, as DTAT, you actually cannot siege. So he lands the giant instead. This is a very committal play though, because this giant can't really back down now, unless it wants to take a very slow and awkward journey back to a port. It needs to stay here to pressure now, but that means it can't go back in the water to help. A very big theme of this game is going to be naval dominance. And you will see DTAT really wants this giant in the water. Because it's on land, that might pose as an issue here. Imperius going for hunting to further develop, grabbing a giant here in the middle. The idea here is that if DTAT hits, then Arthur will be able to use his weaker units, more expendable units, and be able to take out this giant because it'll be weakened. DTAT with a very strong naval dominance here, and DTAT not taking the bait, just instead healing the giant. Now Imperius getting archery, ready to take out this giant and start poking away at these naval units. Archery kind of serving multiple purposes here. Very strong tech in this situation. DTAT backing up his units, seeing the archer. And putting more scouts in the water. Arthur picking away at this warrior. Training more units, making sure the siege isn't justified. DTAT walking off of the defense bonus. Arthur sent this Juggernaut in, and this is going to get pelted away at. But you're seeing some of these units are now vulnerable to the archers. The Juggernaut goes, and this archer dies. This Juggernaut gets damaged. Imperius now getting strategy. This is going to help for a few reasons once again. You can get in the water. You can also further solidify the city wall with the Defender. Defender's amazing in these city walls. So kind of another multi-purpose use of this tech. And with the city advantage, if Arthur can start to fight back against this naval dominance, he's going to be in a beautiful position. But this Juggernaut just goes. Just like that. And now we see another giant by DTAT. 3 giants to 1. But this giant is getting poked away at the archer also. Getting taken out. Giant pressuring. Now Arthur wants to establish possibly a port over here. Sending this raft here just to force these scouts to pay attention to it. The scout's now vulnerable to an archer. But we see navigation bomber getting a ton of splash value over here. Giant moving back. All these weakened units can't quite effectively kill this giant. But we see ramming by Arthur, grabbing a defender, and these archers continuing to advance and be annoying for these scouts. And riders advancing kind of around here to this eastern side. Bomber splashes once again. Juggernaut is in the water here. DTAT with 2 Juggernauts. He'd love to have a third, but he only has 2. Now we see ramming starting to get some value. Arthur slowly getting some rammers in the water. If he can establish this foothold, now 3 rammers in the water. DTAT might not be able to deal with this, and Arthur could get naval dominance. There's some problems in the east here as well for DTAT that are really tricky to deal with. But he is pulling off the defense here. Can't train anything because of the pop cap. And Arthur, once again going around, not going for the siege, instead parking his riders like this because he knows he can grab the Eye of God suddenly out of nowhere. These riders super useful. Also climbing to step on the ruin. These archers also stopping DTAT from really being able to make use of his naval dominance. His bomber is very threatening, but that's kind of all that DTAT has going for him. Now Math finally preparing to get a giant here, except it's actually for the border growth. Also denying these riders space. We see warrior now giant. And that's 4th giant for DTAT. Arthur only has 1. He's made 2 giants, but one of them died. Healing these units. Arthur still with a lot of rammers in the water. Now we see Eye of God online, taking out this warrior, getting a vet rider. Staru and forestry with the Eye of God getting a border growth. All these forests here. And more port space potentially. And kind of chipping away at these scouts, hoping to maybe reach this bomber in the future. And Arthur's economy is looking really nice as well. 8 of power here. Getting this giant quickly. But he did miss out on placing 8 of power in his capital to get a giant here. He had the giant anyway. He didn't actually need the monument. He's doing this just to get the giant right now. Because he really wants it. But will this prove to be the right idea? DTAT able to hold the defense here and keep some units in the water. Taking out these annoying riders. Bomber is still safe. These archers are very annoying. Veteran rider being used almost like a defender rammer. 2 juggernauts in the water. DTAT responding with his juggernauts, but they're not quite as healthy. All these archers though are pressuring, weakening these juggernaut like crazy. This juggernaut does get taken out though. This giant going back to heal though, so it can be used in the future. Bomber and also the catapult. Arthur needs to do something about this, or these are just going to keep getting value. We see while DTAT is down significantly in economy, he goes for diplomacy. Arthur's up 8-star per turn here, but if this cloak chain happens, combined with the bomber and catapults getting value every turn, it's not going to feel like Arthur has an economy advantage because just the sheer amount of pressure that Arthur has to deal with. This bomber might be sorted out with though. This juggernaut's very scary. Could Arthur finally deal with this if he kills these bombers and catapults? That could be it for DTAT. that this cloak is a serious issue. Another rammer in the water. And DTAT is still just barely holding on. Giant advancing, and the Giant's going to be able to defend the cloak, ensuring that it can hit this city. Now, normally to defend these cloaks, as Arthur, you'd love to just bunch a ton of units in the city to stop the dagger spawns, but there's a bomber right here. If you do that, you're giving free splash value. So Arthur is just kind of stuck in this horrible situation. There's two huge problems, but they can't be sorted out. Although Arthur had a missed opportunity here, he could have made 2 scouts, taken out this bomber. I believe this takes out the bomber. Even if it leaves it at 1 HP, it does allow him to bunch up these units here, so I think this is a critical mistake for Arthur here, not taking the chance to remove this bomber. Because had he done it, he could bunch his units up. Instead, he goes for Scout and a Rammer, weakening the Catapult and the Juggernaut. Again, just trying to fight for that long-term naval dominance. But right now, he's going to have some problems. He goes with that approach of weakening all the units here. DTAT, though, not bombing this and instead focusing on the water, defending that, because DTAT cares about that long-term naval dominance here. Now, Cloak infiltrates. Arthur, once again, opportunity to take out the bomber, and this time he answers the call. He does it. But is this Cloak chain too much? Is Arthur going to be able to clear out the daggers and prevent a follow-up? There is another spot also for DTAT to now make another bomber, so he could just replace that bomber. Just like that. Yeah. Arthur is spamming a ton of units here. Another bomber drops down. The dagger stain is going to be able to help hold this naval. And another cloak drops. 5 daggers spawning in. These weakened rafts are not going to be able to deal with the bomber anymore. And it looks like DTAT is going to have this permanent cloak chain. And that means DTAT basically just has a superior economy. Plus, he's really holding this naval dominance, and these bombers are getting crazy value. And whenever Arthur tries to fight against this naval dominance, he's only giving this catapult more value. Now with also these defenders coming in to the water, it's only going to further solidify things. It's getting harder and harder for Arthur to actually be able to do anything. He's got all these units he can defend. But we can see 2 cloaks now from DTAT aiming towards this city now, this very strong border growth city. Great target for the cloaks. Arthur doing everything he can to defend, but this naval dominance from DTAT is proving to be an issue. Another bunch of daggers dropping down. Arthur can defend them with this Archer-Rider combination. DTAT now going for riding. And now Arthur going for knights. That might be able to clean up these cloaks more easily. But the main issue really is his economy. Keep in mind, by the way, I don't think I made note of this earlier. Arthur is trade. He got this from a ruin earlier. Perhaps a better idea might actually be to establish the markets. You can get a nice level 4 sawmill here and a level 2 sawmill here. Get a level 6 market. And that could really help get you back into things. Get your economy up so then you can withstand these cloak attacks, because you can deal with the daggers just fine. You're going to see Arthur here taking out most of the daggers with just archers and riders alone. And with the Veta signing, it will allow him to constantly clean up. Another dagger invasion. And now we see DTAT getting Shiv, trying to punish all these units here that are all bunched up, forcing really awkward spacing. Arthur chains through these daggers. Maybe this is the goal of Chivalry, though. Start weakening this giant. This giant is DTAT's most important unit. It may not be in the water, but this is allowing this cloak chain to happen. If this giant dies, the cloak chain dies. So these knights are going to be able to constantly weaken the giant over time. But DTAT's knight is advancing, posing some issues for Arthur, and the second cloak hits. This cloak chain is going to be very annoying, but Arthur does have a Juggernaut ready to actually kill this cloak here. Another knight chain. The cloak does in fact die. And Arthur might be stabilizing, though this bomber is quite the issue. And the knight as well. Who's to say? Juggernaut's down though, so once again DTAT with a very strong naval dominance, and this bomber is pretty much unstoppable. Cloaks continuing to go here. No cloak connections this turn. But the game ends here. And the reason why is because this game had been going on for an hour. And with the tournament rules, that means it's time for a tiebreak. Because this game could possibly take a very long time to finish. So for the sake of, making sure we aren't here forever, this position right here was sent to a panel of judges, and they ultimately decided that TheTat is winning here. So TheTat gets the win in this game, managing a really surprising comeback here, despite this reduced city count, able to build an advantage over time, despite it looking like in some positions Arthur had a great advantage. But yeah, TheTat starting strong, 1-0. Arthur has to make that reverse sweep or else he's out. And I'll go ahead and cut to the next match. All right, game 2. Now with Hoodrick hosting, Arthur has to make something happen. And we'll see how things go. Kind of normal opening so far. Hoodrick with a nice second city. Imperius also with a very nice second city, as to be expected. But missing his suburb here, and this city isn't looking quite as good. TheTat going for the Explorer. Explores the south. Will it meet Imperius? It will. Giving an extra 3 rating stars and revealing exactly where Imperius is. Now Arthur getting Riding Breed Cat, very aggressive, but noticing there's a lot of land on this map. Even with that limited information that he does have. The city, though, is really bad for Hoodrick. And he just can't find his suburb. So TheTat, despite the host advantage, is actually not expanding much faster than Imperius. Now Arthur getting that Explorer, meeting Hoodrick, getting 7 meeting stars. And the Lighthouse. This ruin here could be hotly contested, but Arthur is ready with the riders. Not easy for Hoodrick to be able to steal this ruin. See TheTat with another Explorer, but that means he doesn't have any stars left in the tank. He's going to have to chop if he wants to get some more units. He does get the Lighthouse here. Potential for Eye of God, maybe? But Arthur getting roads, very aggressive, acknowledging that these ruins and villages will be very important, so fighting for those is important. And he gets a resource ruin. Takes this village with a 5 HP rider, steps on the ruin, steps on the village. Triple threat, you cannot defend at all. In fact, you actually cannot defend at all. Only being able to take out a rider. Getting a free spirit ruin. Chivalry could be an option in the future. I mean, Hoodrick does have archers. We see fishing. And Arthur is able to get the Northern Lighthouse, only needing 1 more. And the reason why he got fishing, we can now see, was to get the Southern Lighthouse, which he just barely gets. If he didn't get fishing, it would not have been able to get that Lighthouse. And getting Eye of God here on turn 8 is going to be huge. See, road connection. Eye of God up here. Very interesting placement. But maybe you guys can see the idea behind this one. Arthur now taking out this warrior. Getting the giant here. Ports. And then gets the second giant right in front. Forgets to upgrade the city, but this position is incredible for Arthur. Hoodrick is able to get this 3rd lighthouse. He just needs to get this lighthouse back here, but it's actually going to take some time. And Hoodrick does not have much time. He is being attacked right now. Now Arthur trying to justify this by going for the port now. Maybe it is justified. I guess he's not going to get the giant anyway. And yeah, this pressure here, how do you even defend this? TheTat, can you defend this? You have archers, but you just don't have enough time. We see border growth here. Getting the sawmill. Getting the giant on the capital. Park of Fortune. It looks like he is planning on defending this. Where's the giant push, though? Imperius taking out these units. Keeping a unit on this forest, forcing Hoodrick to take that out. And we're going to be able to see I've got upgrading and just barely able to unsiege. But Imperius is also in the water, and they have that knight thanks to that free spirit rune earlier. So Thitat forced to space his units, which is really bad. Thitat needs a lot of units to defend. So, kind of forcing this for Imperius, and also keep in mind Imperius is up in cities as well. Arthur just with a commanding position, going for the knight chain with the siege. Smacking that archer because why not? Another knight. Just more units to pressure. Now we see fishing chopping a bunch of force to once again barely unsiege. But now Arthur once again just brutally attacking, and you cannot defend this for a third time, so Thitat resigns once he loses the city. He's donated 3 monuments to Arthur, and Arthur will get a 4th monument thanks to Grand Bazaar. This will be completely unwinnable for Thitat, so Thitat resigns, making this at 1-1. It's all down to the last game. So I'll go ahead and cut to that. Alright, now game 3. Hoodrick spawn looking a little iffy with this water. And Imperius spawn, you're going to see, is going to play very differently than the previous 2 games. See Hoodrick able to get their C2, and it still has 2 animals, as per usual. So that's nice. Now Imperius going hunting, not riding, because look at all these animals and forests. Not very typical for Imperius because they have a reduced animal rate, but in this case, you can justify a hunting opening, and just look at this setup for Imperius. Hoodrick is able to develop nice and quick thanks to getting perfect resources, plenty of animals in every city, getting this explorer, tons of vision on the opponent. But Imperius can kind of take this slower opening. Hoodrick can't actually punish it. And now we see forestry. No riding, no roads, just hunting forestry. In fact, getting forestry before Hoodrick. Grabbing the southern lighthouse. Seeing some chops here to develop. Hoodrick going, training some units. You see Arthur upgrading with the lumber huts, not using the fruit. Why might that be the case? Well, it's because Arthur wants to get mathematics. And by upgrading in this manner, he's actually able to get a giant on turn 7 by chopping a forest. Just like that. And a beautiful level 5 sawmill. That's going to allow for a double market soon. Yes, that's right. We're going to see the Hoodrick textbook game plan. But with Imperius, Thitat going for fishing to try and upgrade things. So Hoodrick kind of forced in an awkward position due to his spawn. Whereas Arthur, you can see getting riding, prepping for roads. Now, on turn 8, after Imperius has already gotten math, do we finally see Hoodrick getting forestry? You can see why he got fishing though. If we look back here, you can see math is now able to get a giant. That's why he got fishing earlier. And Thitat really trying to fight for these cities, but unfortunately he just can't quite take them. It's really hard to be aggressive as Hoodrick, and we can really see that the limitations of Hoodrick here. The Thitat is trying to sneak up and grab that lighthouse, trying to pressure in any way that he can, but this giant is very strong in defense. Arthur denies the northern lighthouse, and 2 giants. Now sawmill here. It's only a matter of time before Arthur gets markets. Thitat now getting math, but it feels really slow. He is temporarily up in cities, and for a while, it looks like Hoodrick will be even in cities until, I don't know, you go like to the east here. But we see trade on turn 11. Hoodrick not even close. No counterplay to the markets. But Thitat doesn't see them. So he doesn't actually know that they're there. So Thitat plays on, develops, tries to poke away at things, get as much value out of his archers as he can. Now Arthur getting more vision, getting vision on the capital, getting that lighthouse. He just needs the eastern one, and he's good to go, but it's going to take a while to get that. But we do see the road connection and the next market. Nice 32 star per turn. well above Hoodrick. And that's only with 2 markets. Hoodrick with a very nice border growth. But now Imperius getting fishing and a Juggernaut to start pressuring the city. Road connection. We can see Imperius just to turn away from border growthing himself, but Hoodrick did get to it first, which is very nice. But it's not going to be enough. These markets continuing to get tons of value. Every turn that these markets are on board, that is 12 more stars for Imperius. And as Imperius gets more markets, that advantage is only going to increase further. Now we see border growth to set up a nice level 4, soon to be a level 5 market. And again, you can see these advantageous positions, they tend to snowball. Now Imperius grabbing archery. Huge tech advantage because of all the stub return and just so many units, very strong, well-positioned catapults. Soon, Imperius will even be getting knights. And at this point, unfortunately, this will be the end of DTAT's journey. Doing very well, getting to semifinals. He does get his market, but it is simply too late here. Arthur pressuring with 3 giants, getting Shiv. There's nothing that Hoodrick can do to defend here. And DTAT finally resigns, ending his tournament journey. Arthur going to the grand finals with a chance to win $4,000. So you guys will have to stay tuned for that. There's going to be one more set of the semifinals, and then we will see the grand finals. So hope you guys enjoyed. Like and sub, and have a good one.